and started.
Okay, Philippe, are you?
I am.
You're
I am. Hey, welcome everyone to this meeting of the Ecma TC54 Task Group 2 for the standardization of Perl. As a reminder for everyone, this call is recorded and we're subject to the code of conduct that you can see in our repository. And just be nice to everyone and everything will be fine. So first order of business is to make sure we agree to the previous meeting minutes which were merged. And these are, where did I put that? Do you have a link for that, John, by chance? Oh, I do have it.
the link for the previous meeting is in the the meeting minutes. Sorry,
the meeting minutes. So let me give you the link here, so you can have a look at it. There you go. And if you can have a quick look at it, if there's any objections, we'll consider these accepted. They can be updated after the fact if you find a mistake. Great. Second thing is just take the roll call to take a list of things we want to address. I'll start in sequential order. Actually, no specific order. Oh. Michael.
Which does stretch the nerve.
yeah, I have two related topics for the standard, reviewing the draft standard document, and most particularly the markdown generated output for the schema. And anyway, I think that's these are critical path items to, get us on our September.
Okay. You said two, that's just one.
Well, they're related. One is that I want to show people the latest draft of the textual part, just make sure everyone's familiar with it, and then comment on that. But the main one is to talk about what kind of output we want for the schema in the human readable form. So that's the main thing.
Steve.
Nothing really pressing. Just need to kind of know like when the standard directory is going to stabilize and how you guys would want changes to be made.
Okay. Salve.
Yeah, no big questions. One tiny question, and that is the per types index schema.json. Is that in its final form, or is there room for some changes now or later?
Anytime.
Well, not anytime in the next week, because we got to freeze it. So
yeah. So definitely let's address that. And John, on your side,
Nothing for me. Nothing for me, Philip. Thanks.
Okay, and on my side, discuss the markdown also, plus a few other items. No, that's the gist of it. Okay, so let's start with you, Michael. You have the floor.
Well, actually, do you want to? We start with Salve and the index, because that's a granular one, and that if there is something we're going to change, the sooner we know about it, the better.
Go ahead, Salve.
Okay, so here's the idea. Having a clear way to just list these are the different types, that's awesome. But I feel there is one bit that would be extremely useful that's kind of missing, and that is the ability to list the names of packages that can consume or produce package URLs. Like, so say if you find a vulnerability and you want to resolve, you hear about the vulnerability and it has a package URL supplied and you want to figure out where that comes from. So you use the native tooling to download and install that package, for example, to see how it works within a test environment or something like that. So what tool would you need for somebody who isn't deeply familiar with the toolchain of the given package system or the language in question or something like that? Just having a way to say these are the options that support package URLs that you can just like give them to download that package that has a vulnerability in it and have a look at it. I think that would be useful. That could help you decide if this is a vulnerability that has been injected in the packaging ecosystem or comes from further upstream or do some looking for sources of errors.
So practically, if you take an example of, so it's not on the index, it will be on the type definition.
No, I think that for me, the index would be a fantastic place to put it, because there it says, well, these are the package, these are the types that we have. And here are the package URLs of some of the tools that for each of the type that can consume that specific package URL type. And that means I can start, say, for example, if I have a package on cpan and it depends on another package from another ecosystem, I can just supply the name of that package URL in that ecosystem, and I can take a look at the index to see when I want to fetch that, what kind of tools can I use to fetch it, and use that tool, just all of the task to that specific tool, shell out a separate process or whatever, and then next stuff happen, or produce a meaningful error if the tool isn't available.
Okay, but
that's not the purpose of the index, right?
Right now, the index is just a list of Perl types
that have been registered. So basically, it's telling you that this Perl type has been registered. Therefore, there is a type definition, a test, and other. So that would seem to overload that with details, whereas you retrieve the list of the index, and then you can go look up the metadata for each one of them.
Yeah. Well, so for me, I'm looking for a place to put this metadata. What the packages support it, and for me, the index is like a one-to-one match. Like this is.
But the registered types would be a one-to-one match. If you had that data in the type, then that's
completely with you, Michael. So I think the intent of the index is just to be a bare list. I mean, we could even get rid of it, frankly, because you could do a directory listing.
No, we want the list, Philippe.
But it's good to have the list.
It's generated.
Now, I think what you're saying, Josh, sadly, sorry, I was about to call you Joshua, but there's a wealth of interesting and useful information for each package type, which we're not capturing at the moment. For instance, something like, say, a link to an icon that represents this package in the ecosystem. That could be super nice when you build website and web application for. What would be, for instance, a URL template to get an API call metadata given a package information? Would be another one. There's very specific conventions, information about, what is the format of the package metadata? Well, this one is JSON, this one is XML, this one is Ruby, for instance, literally. Plus, in your case, if you can reformulate what you were saying, you'd like to know for a package type, what would be the typical tool that actually consumes this package? Oh, no, you're muted at the moment.
What is a tool? Which tools are capable of consuming a package URLs of this specific type and do the right thing with it?
Oh, using the Perl as an input or using the package concept?
Using the Perl as an input. So if I want to say, like one of the tools on for talking with CPAN is a tool called CPAN minus or CPAN M.
Okay.
So I could say CPAN M and then pass along a package URL as an input instead of a module name. And then the CPAN M could do the right thing and actually go to the CPAN index, figure out the name of the actual tarball, and then download it and start building and installing.
Okay, so yes, so we could have that information at the type level saying, hey, these are tools that are about to consume this. And we could go one step further, which is there's also a set of tools that are able to natively process the type, which may not be about processing Perl, but it's useful to know that
Yeah, I have only one.
you have bundler when you process Ruby packages, that you have cargo as a tool when you process Rust and so on and so on. So I think there's a lot of information here which, to the best of my knowledge, are not available anywhere in a consolidated place. Actually, weirdly enough, I was looking at, I'm going to share that briefly. No, actually I can, because it's a document that was shared with me privately. But a buddy shared with me a document he's been working on for a while, which basically says, oh, for Maven, so it's based on the JVM, and you also have Gradle and Bazel that use that. There's no log file, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of interesting and useful metadata that we can collect in a structured way for each package type. There's also another example, which is the thing that was done by libraries.io in the past. I don't know if it's still there. Let me double check.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make this into a big distraction.
No, it's not a distraction, not at all.
Yes, there's just one index to hint of where what can I do with this package URL. And that's the only thing I'm looking for, because that is immediately useful the moment we start using package URLs in our ecosystem. If I have a package that itself supplies some JSON from somewhere, not JSON, JavaScript library like Bootstrap.js or whatever, jQuery. I want to know where it comes from, and that could be supplied by a package URL. But if I want to like recreate the build, and I want to know where it actually comes from and what I can do with it. Is the tooling minifying the JavaScript? But I don't know, because I don't have access to the tooling. I don't even know what tooling the author used in order to create that file. And that's why I want to just have an idea of what tooling can be used. And if there are several alternative tools that could be used to achieve similar effects, then it's extra important that I know what specific tooling was used and which ecosystem it came from.
Yeah, definitely. So just to give you an example on the metadata side, here, two things I had in mind. I pasted a link to that one in the chat, which is a list of package URL. Well, not a list of URI templates, or maybe not URI exactly using the proper URL templates language, but very close to. And for each package types, roughly, it came from libraries.io. And the other one it's 10 years old, right? But the concept is still there. The other one is something a bit similar, which is to have a bunch of Where is that? I don't know where it is, but somewhere in this repo here, we have a list of pictograms, literally icons for each of the package managers. And I think we can consolidate this kind of data in the schema. Is it critical to have it in the for the standard, for Ecma standard? I don't think so.
Well, for 1.0, it's not possible, right? We've got a week out, so let's not even.
Yeah.
We need an issue. We need to develop it. We need to figure out what we're going to do. But
Right. Okay.
I don't think we can afford to interrupt the process right now with September 1st.
Thank you. Noted.
But we can work on that in the
Right.
meantime. It's absolutely not a problem, and that means that very quickly what ends up being the head of the repo is already above and beyond what we have in the 1.0, which is fine. It's perfectly okay.
We can have a schema that's in. We can create a new schema that's not in the standard yet. I mean that, right? I mean that's not a problem. We just have to be clear on what's in the standard, what's not, because we have a timeline that we have to follow.
Yeah. But so I like the idea. It's actually Salve, something I was thinking about the other week, saying we really need something along these lines, and we also actually, I think even federated code schemas. I think there's something someplace.
Well, let's start it, Philippe. Let's start an issue.
No, but just
start
to give you a bit of an idea of something. We've actually forked this here to have the list of all the images for each of the package manager. And you have, for instance, I know if that's the one that's the greatest you like and the current one, but you have one for CPAN. It's probably not up to date. It's 10 years old. Okay.
Okay, so I'll have a new issue and discussion, and
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think that's great. Yeah,
If you want to start an issue, but I think there's a real benefit there, and that's also a way to have usefulness in the spec and the data we aggregate for each package type, which goes beyond just the mere identification. And again, there's even there you have two places in this abandoned thing called libraries.io. But I think that's in one place together with the package type definition, the convention, the URL for, I think, URLs to get access to downloads, how you convert a Perl to download, how you convert a Perl to an API call to get the metadata for a package. All of these would be good to have. All right. Michael, you have the floor now.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid we just lost Steve, but let me.
That was the goal. We're trying to bore him.
Okay, well, he's the one who needs. So, what I want to talk about is the status of the standard development. So, I'm going to share my screen. I put most of the links in the screen one in the chat in the channel, but don't show my. I think my screen should be okay. Yeah. So what I'm showing at the moment is the well, almost exactly correct layout of the repo. What I want to bring attention to is that we have now essentially separated it out from Perl specification RST into a series of documents under the docs directory. These are all MD files. And if a file is in the subdirectory called standard, that means the content is in the proposed set for the version 1.0 standard. And if it's not in that directory, it means it's part of the specification, but not being submitted as part of the standard. So most everything, about half the stuff in the standard subdirectory is also in the specification, but some of them are, yeah, Philippe, sorry. Yeah,
Can you zoom a bit, because
Okay.
you likely have to have a very large screen, and my
Okay.
laptop is not that big, and
Okay, is that okay?
a bit more. There's no way to zoom on Google Meet, so
How about that? Is that
Much better thing.
yeah? So, I was saying some of the documents in the standard directory are kind of, set up specifically to fit the Ecma standard documentation. So, John is still doing a lot of work to do. There's various kinds of cleanup, including things like, for the standard documents, we need to confirm to the Oxford English Dictionary spelling of words, things like that. So there's cleanup, but we mostly finished that. And then what we have now to replace Perl specification RST is we have a generated document, which I'm showing on my screen, which essentially has the same content. This is, we're on a tight timeline, so this is John has worked out how to do this generation, but we don't have an automated workflow yet. We're doing it as we make the changes. But just to show you what that will look like, your markdown representation may vary a little bit, but basically this is not in the format that Steve needs exactly. There's a transformation that goes on, but these are all sections that are part of the standard conformance, normative references, overview, and then the big one, of course, the Perl package URL specification. So these are all this content here in section 5 is shared with the specification. It's just structured a little differently for the standard documentation. So that I'm just making people aware of that. The file has some comments at the top that you'd see if you tried to edit it, that's saying, don't change this file, change the local files, but we can regenerate it at any time in, I don't know, a matter of seconds. And we have an issue out there for the automation of the workflow. Ultimately,
by the way, there's a tiny problem here. I don't know why there's a $10 that's been generated here.
Okay, I don't know either, but
yeah,
we'll figure that out. And we'll have these. We also have a document, a similar one called Perl Specification MD, that recreates the full specification document in the image, if you will, of the old RST. And we plan to continue maintaining these at least until we have the website available as the primary documentation site. So part of the rationale for splitting up the documentation into more topical chunks was to make it more flexible for how we organize this and display it on the website, which is making progress, but still has quite a ways to go. So I'm assuming that we'll probably be generating these 2 files, both of which are generated, do not edit files, for several months at least. But we've got a mechanism to do that. So that was kind of the first thing on that particular thing. If Steve isn't able to join us again, then I will ping him directly. But the more critical part is how are we? So in the sorry, let me go here. So this document I'm showing now, and let me Control+, is the existing draft template that Steve generated with the EC markup for the some months ago, for the Ecma standard. And at this section here, starting at section 6, the Perl type schema, this was just dummy text, sort of ipso lorem kind of stuff. And we need to replace that with an actual human readable representation of the schema. And so our starting point, our is the royal we, meaning John doing most of the work and me being the press secretary. We generated this file here. And this is a bunch of table of contents at the top. This is markdown generated directly from the schema file. And this, we're focusing on Perl type definition. Whatever we do there can be replicated for Perl test. So this is the raw output, if you will, and it looks like this. So it has its own table of contents at the top, which we won't want because we want the table of contents to come from the Ecma standard document itself. And then it produces this sort of output here. And there's a bunch of stuff here that looks kind of redundant and a little hard to follow. I mean, it makes sense if you follow this path. I mean, it's not out of the question that we would use this, but it doesn't seem too human friendly. But this is available. I put the links in the channel. So these files, these markdown output files, are in the G drive. They don't really fit too well into an issue at this point. And one of their features, so the tool we're using is something called JSON Schema for Humans, which is a JSON schema tool that supports Dialect 7 and is written in Python, which is kind of our base language for this. It also generates a pretty interesting HTML output. So the idea is that once we figure out, exactly how we want to tune those outputs, that we would also be able to automatically generate an HTML output for the website that you could interact with. So again, for this standard document, it needs to be static. You're not counting on internal links for the navigation. Everything has to be available. But for the website, we can use the HTML, and this is consistent with how they've done CycloneDX. So that at the end of the day, the schema is the canonical representation, but for Ecma, we need a human readable definition. So this file I'm just going to show next is a manual editing of the output that I just showed you, the automatic generation. And we just have not had time to figure out how to possibly automate this, but this was kind of number one, was trying to get an idea whether this representation or some other is what we want. So what I've done here in this particular version is I've reset the titles so that they follow the pattern of this is section 6. So again, this is section 6, Perl type schema. So it's setting that up. There will be, ahead of this, or somewhere right above this section, will be some narrative introducing the section and so on, as you would normally have, but that's not generated. So the idea here is taking the output, resetting the titles, removing those, removing these paths that sort of get in the way of readability, in my opinion, but other people may have a different view. And then just basically doing this kind of numbering that we do so for each element in this table at the top, the properties of the Perl type, each one gets a major number. So JSON schema is not a lot to say about it, but it's 6.1. And these are the titles of the sections are just taken from the titles in the table. So they're not exactly they're not the name of the property. We could make it that. They're default to the name, the human name of the property. And so basically for each section you get, a top level 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, whatever. And then once you get into the properties that have more details, you have subsections. So here I have 6.6, so that's a top level property, and it has its own properties. So its properties become 6.6.1, 6.6.2, 6.6.3. Again, this is all following the pattern of the CycloneDX and a lot of other Ecma documentation. There's not an absolute format for this, but basically what you're doing is trying to show the detail and put it in a human document table of content structure with this kind of numbering. So as you go through it, there's some repetition here, but for instance, namespace has more properties, so namespace has more subsections. 6.7. In this example, I have not changed anything besides the titles and the removal of the strings. That's basically whatever is just coming from the markdown. This is not edited in any way in terms of the markdown. It could be, but it seems, seems okay to me. And then we have other sections like array restrictions, and this particular part's a little weird, but because the description isn't there, but I don't think it really caused a problem. So basically what I'm looking for is feedback on the output format that we want to include in the standard. Again, the simplest view. This top table of contents is generated would have to be replaced because it just doesn't relate to what we're doing. And we'd have to do something to number them. That's just part of the deal. We could include this path somewhere if we wanted to keep that, if it was easier, but it doesn't make sense as the title of the section, just again, given the human readable schema representation. So this is kind of the critical path item right now to finish the draft standard, is how do we want to generate this? What are the, what tooling do we need to do these things automated? I mean, I can do them again personally, but probably not the best way to go. So John has already looked at some of that, but we haven't agreed on the output, so we're not doing anything to automate that. So that's where we are. And we need section 6 and section 7 to complete the draft standard. The index itself is so small that the assumption is we'll just have a narrative section that covers the index again at the top of section 6. We're not going to skip the index schema, but it doesn't, it's as we were discussing earlier, it's very simple. We can do that any way we want. So that's the question at hand, is what kind of format people want to see. Yep, Philippe, here.
So I think this is looking great. Yeah, awesome work. There's two comments. The first one is, I still think we should have the full schema JSON as an appendix to the standard.
Fine, we can do that as an appendix. It just can't be the...
Yeah, because we want to have, I mean, the schema is what is normative.
Right, and that's...
have the schema in it. So now, the second thing is,
But that's just basic, but Philippe, I mean, that would just be like a giant code block, right? I mean, that's
exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. The second thing is, I think we should fork this library here, and make it specialized for ECMA output. Or if we can just contribute upstream, if possible, the few changes, so we have the option not to have the title, or to have the title the way you like it.
I mean,
and you have the option to apply the numbering the way you like it. So you can start it at something that the goal being to have something which is entirely generated as is and reused directly without any intervention.
Yeah, that's great as an aspirational goal at the moment. John has been configuring this using configuration commands for the base package, and we haven't agreed on the target output, so we haven't done anything to it except it's manual. So I agree with the point, but we have to first agree on what the output should look like and then determine what steps are there to do it. So 100% for the automation, but right now we want to understand what the target output is. For example, for each one of these, would we want a line underneath here, say, that gave you the path, which was, gives you this, this path view. So, for instance, do we want to keep that or not? I don't think it's terrible. It's terrible as a title, but it might be useful as a, sort of an underline or something, right? And then it's a pretty standard. I don't know what the new tag would be or whatever, but that could be, that'd be very easy to automate because it's always in the same format, right? It's always in this, whatever this pound, blah, blah, blah. And we could so I'm saying is we could move it down here and, shrink it a little or whatever, right? But we could clearly do something like that in an automated way. As far as the renumbering, that's probably more complicated. We're probably not going to get that done by September 1st, but we can at least have a prototype running and then figure it out. So I'm okay with that. JSON Schema for Humans is still pretty active project. For better or worse, it only supports dialect 7, but that suits our purposes today. And it, unlike the other Python libraries that, again, we went to the JSON Schema tool list, and that's where we got it from. It was one that supported dialect 7 and generated both HTML and Markdown. There's other tools that separate, that generate just Markdown or just HTML. But I'm fine if we want to fork it. We should probably talk to the, raise an issue there and talk to the maintainers about it, because they might be interested too in what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Do you have the link to this tool?
To JSON Schema for Humans?
Yeah.
Yeah. John, can you drop it in the channel? It's a PyPy package.
I will look for it, and then when I find it, I'll do that.
Yeah. It's just a PyPy package. So
For the record, I'd like to say that when I see a package that has For Human in its name, it gets under my skin. I don't know why, but I feel it's borderline arrogant, because it tends to say all the other tools that are doing JSON schema have been designed by somebody which doesn't know anything about human.
I think you're over-interpreting that one. I think it's just saying us. Yeah.
No, but there's been a stream of libraries at some point of time that used to be for humans, and it got under my skin. So I wanted that to be on the recorded forever on YouTube, and it's going to be available for the next 5 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Or less.
As a human, I'm not offended. So, this is our purpose, right? Is
Fair enough.
Yeah. So again, the mandate here is to produce human readable stuff. Are people actually going to use this? I'll be on the record here too. Are this what they're actually going to refer to instead of the schema? I hope not. I don't know that it's in the current CycloneDX document, but if you go to the CycloneDX documentation, there's many places where it's stated that if in doubt, go to the schema itself. Don't go to the HTML. Don't go to the, the Ecma document. Go to the schema itself. And of course, that's the correct answer. But for a standard, there are criteria. For instance, I mentioned earlier, we have to do Oxford English spelling. So we just have to do it. And get
we can do the translation. Just don't use ChatGPT 5.
We don't use ChatGPT 5. I don't use I don't use any of that stuff. John does. So we're a balanced team. But
technically, a translation from American English to Oxford English, it should be something which is which is what LLMs were designed for in the first place.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know where we're going to find a tool that understands that an Oxford English license with a C is the noun and license with an S is the verb, right?
Except that you don't want to change also the schema.
We're not going to change the schema in that respect. We're going to change we're not going to do this document I'm showing now. We're not going to change that. It's going to be in the text, right?
Yeah.
In the narrative section.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So Salve, you have any feedback or any?
No, it looks good to me.
Looks good. Okay. Well, that's a good answer. Well, I'm going to have to follow up with Steve, because obviously he's the one that has to make the magic happen. So to be clear,
absents always are wrong, and their opinion don't matter.
Again, we shifted everything to Markdown. What I'm expecting to do is we'll provide to him a Markdown file, including this kind of section and including the code blocks for the appendix or whatever we have, and that he has got some other what we call it, EC-foo, some kind of, there's a specialized process to convert this into EC markup. But how that actually works is not clear to me or John or any of us. Steve knows how to do it. In the past, he converted a docx file pretty easily into the format, so I'm trusting to that. We pretty much stabilized the rest of it except for one question, which is whether we need a term. Where am I here? Sorry, no, that's not what I want. So just for reference here, and I guess I can make this bigger. This is the, no, oh yeah, there I can, okay. I don't think I can make this side of it bigger. This is the current document. And, again, here, this is the kind of table of contents we need to build. Obviously, there's a lot more here. There's, hundreds of more properties than we're dealing with. But there is one section. So we have section 3, the normative references. We only have a few, but we will have that. And we have some of the same ones like 3986. At the moment, we don't have a terms and definitions section, which is important to decide because it would shift the numbering. There's a handful of references. I think there's one reference to SPDX. There's some others. My general sense is that we don't have enough terms and definitions that we really need this, but I don't know if that's an open question. I'll also pose it to Steve. But again, they have so many properties and they're defining so many things, and I don't think we are doing that. I mean, obviously we're defining Perl,
So
but this is an open question.
I'm with you there. I personally think there's too much there because you basically have double duty where these definitions here are also defined in the schema. And so in our case, we have much fewer terms. And I would guess that this section is likely to be generated. If it is not, then that's really a problem. But
yeah.
As far as we're concerned, the spec is the definition of this term. So I don't see how you can have them, above and beyond, at the top and inside. That's too much.
Yeah. Well, so yeah. So and if we added this section later, that doesn't change the schemas or anything. I think the point is that what we're doing with Perl is way upstream of CycloneDX, right? So downstream, they're describing a lot of other things, whether you like this particular thing or this particular terminology or not. They've got a lot more things moving around. We're way upstream, and we're just trying to find our thing, which then, of course, I think it shows up in here. Yeah. So we make it here, but it doesn't really tell you all that much. So I'm fine to leave it out. I'll check that with Steve, but I just wanted to bring up. Otherwise, where we're at with this today is to complete the generation of those sections, add the appendices, and then there's let me just get this. There's this colophon and bibliography and some other things that I think Steve generally takes care of. We'll make documents for them. This strictly speaking is not true, and this is something I think Steve mentioned and we need to talk to him about. It is not clear how all of the elements of the current CycloneDX standard document are managed. As far as the schema changes, that's pretty clear. So I guess you can say it's authored, but the documents that go into it are not maintained on that site. But anyway, I'll work that out with Steve. But anyway, this is this EC markup is its own project, and it's what you have to use to produce a standard. And again, our timeline is to submit this to Ecma as an organization on September 1st. We actually have a checkpoint next week, and I guess I'll need to also consult with Steve for the TC54 group or TC54 committee, whatever. And it's somehow, and maybe we can wait till the TC54 in it's once a month. I'm not clear that we have to have it approved by TC54 next week in order to submit into the Ecma process. So I'll have to clarify that with Steve. I believe, that TC54 is part of it. So I believe if we get it to, in a full document to Steve by September 1st, then it can be approved by TC54 in September and not hold up the schedule. That's my best guess of where we are. And Yeah.
Okay, I hadn't realized there was all these shenanigans to go through for converting documents. In earnest, I can see the superiority of something like restricted text, which could have been able to handle everything all the way.
But yeah, but it's not but they don't use restructured text, so that would not have helped us. So yes, we are to a certain extent recreating our restructured text Sphinx like scaffolding with Markdown. But the good news is there's lots of tools, and the bad news is there's lots of tools. So I've raised issues for also in our workflow having some kind of check on making sure we're using GitHub dialect and all these sorts of things. So the way I've been looking at this is that if we produce a consistently generated document in Markdown, that then, you know, Steve and his team can convert that into the EC version of Markdown. So I haven't heard anything from him that tells me that's a problem. But it is a specialized version, and it's just, you know, that's the price of admission, as I would understand it, to having an Ecma formal standard. So the urgency for us is to produce one. Essentially, the urgency for us, and most of the work is John and some work from me, is going to be to produce this this document, Perl standard, this document here with section, you know, we stop here at section 5.6, and then we have to put in 6 for Perl types definition and 7 for Perl tests, and then the appendices. So this is, that's the work at hand in the next week. So I think I heard you say, Philippe, you like the idea of keeping the path, but just not using it as the title. So keeping the path of the element down here. But I'll do a version that does that, and we'll see what people think.
Yeah, moving it out so it's not what you're looking at right now is fine, but on the other hand, if there's no change to do and have the path which look a bit odd, that's not a big deal. Fixing the tool to not emit this path would not be a big deal either. It's written in Python. It's weird that they don't use an existing library for parsing schemas, by the way. They parse the schemas on their own, which is sad. Which explains why they're stuck in draft 7 land. But no, okay. we're as a way, my 2 cents, just let's pick the thing that has the less impact in terms of
well, right, yeah. So I mean, so the choice right now would be either deleting all these lines based on a pattern, or moving, you know, using or moving them or something else. So I don't. Again, the question is just whether that, you know, that part has to go, but whether
well,
having this as kind of a comment line, not as the name of thing. I mean, you know, technically speaking, it is the property, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's hard to read and follow. And
okay, now this tool, JSON schema for humans and other little people, this tool actually uses Jinja for from producing Markdown. So it's going to be fairly easy to adjust the stuff any way you like.
Okay. Jinja or Jinja 2?
Well, there's no, I don't know why it's called Jinja 2. Really, there's never been a Jinja 1 from what I can see. Or if it's been there, it was like last century.
Okay. Okay. Okay, well, I'll do again, I can do these prototypes manually, which I think is the easiest until we agree on what we want.
Yeah, definitely.
It takes me about 30, 40 minutes to do that. So I'll come up with a couple. I'll keep this one and come up with an alternative MJH02 or something like that. And I think you know, we'll need to discuss it, Philippe, and I've got to get a hold of Steve. So I guess he had something else he had to do. but obviously he's a critical one. But he has not so far, in my discussion with Steve so far, the exact format is not an issue. It's that it has to be human readable. So I don't think that's going to cause him trouble. So I'm going to proceed with that. Okay, well, we've still got a ton of work to do, but I can see the end in sight with this.
Yeah, great. So I think we had a great meeting. Unless there's any other question, I think we're done for the day, and you can stop the recording.